Okay, so what we're going to do here is just give you a little information on how to work your way through the lab. So there's a couple things we need to do, of course. We'll need these two KMZ files, the world impact structures and the moon craters one. And so as you work your way through here, you're going to download the files and open them in Google Earth, kind of like you've done for everything else. And once you do that, you're just going to look around. So I'll give you a little preview. It should look something like this. So you can see I have the moons of the crater and this. The moons of the crater stuff won't show up until we go actually to the moon. But for now, it's showing all the world impact structures. So when you're looking around, just be careful that you're aware of the legend here. Really, the only ones that we're looking at are these confirmed ones. And so if it's red, just red, and nothing else, then that is a rejected one. Remember, it's saying that it's not an impact, okay? And it's a little confusing because there's these dots that have the red with the thing inside, and so those are exposed or unexposed, which they're buried or not, right? So you want to be a little careful. So when you're looking at different types, like out here, this one here, this is not an impact site, because it's this red, which is this rejected one. So when you're determining how many impact craters there are in different places around, here, these are not impact sites. They might look like them, but they're not. But the one with the yellow in the middle is an exposed crater, right? Another exposed crater, that kind of thing. So there are some questions that refer to that. But you're just going to look around and evaluate some of these. When you get close to one, you can measure kind of how big the impact is. And so you just use the measuring tool like you've done in the past. And of course, you can search for ones. Remember, you can search for particular names in this search bar, not this one, but this one here, and it'll find the name in the list here, right? So as I sneak this away for a second, some general questions just about things, and then this is basically explaining how that search bar works. And so remember, it's not the one at the top of Google Earth, but it's the one that's kind of in the middle below the list of all of the impacts, right? So you're going to need this image here, and you can use probably just this image. Now, there's additional information at this link, but basically we're looking to kind of, is it one of these two, which are super simple impact craters? They don't leave much of a footprint except for the circular feature. But as they get larger, the impactor gets larger, then the crater's larger, and we tend to see a circle, a crater, but there's a peak in the middle. That's the central peak. And then where we have even larger impacts, then we get a peak ring in the middle. And then, of course, these multi-ring impact basins are just enormous, right? So there's a size indicator here. So what we want to do to identify the type of crater is size is your friend here, so that can help. But certainly looking for some of these features. If there's a peak in the middle, then it's a central peak. No peak and it's tiny, it's that. Ginormous, and it's the multi-ring impact basin. And so that's kind of how it works, right? So here you go in a meteor crater. And these other ones here, you're looking for this crater in South Africa. So type in the search bar that name, and then it'll locate it for you. You can fly there, and then you can measure that in diameters and determine what type it is. You can go to Chesapeake Bay and look for the one that's there. You can look for the Sierra Madera one in North America. Once again, type that into your search bar and it'll take you there. And then we're going to take a quick little look at this map in particular about Meteor Crater. We're going to look at some elevations that are marked here on the topographic map to determine how deep the crater is. And then we're going to actually jump to the moon. And so in order to do that, we'll come back to our Google Earth here. You're going to see that there's, let's see, I got to remember where it's at. I think it's right here. There it is. So we can go to the moon. And so it's going to load that data, and we can see craters of the moon. And because my craters of the moon is actually selected, I have those here. I can go down and these are the lists. And so of course we can double click these and fly to those locations and answer similar questions that we did when we looked at the ones on Earth. Okay, and so that's how we're going to evaluate some of the craters of the moon. So go to this location, try to figure out what it is. And we're using size once again, right? And we're using kind of the looking for the central peak or the pit that's very small, things like that. And then for the final part, I'm going to have you visit this site here. And that's going to look something, let's see, it's going to be really big, but we'll see if I can pull it over here, make a little adjustment. Hang on a second. But basically, it's a program that was developed at this site that allows you to enter some data. And it's going to look something like this. There it is. And so Purdue University and the Imperial College worked together to create this. And you can input some information here. So the first part is how far are you from the impact, right? So distance, and then you can pick your units. And then there's the size of the object, how dense it is, its velocity, the angle it's coming in, and then what it's striking, sedimentary rock, crystalline, or if it's water, how deep is the water. And then when you hit calculate, it'll produce some parameters. It'll tell you, based on this distance from the impact, did you survive or not? It'll tell you the heat. It'll tell you the Richter scale of the earthquake that was created from the impact. It'll tell you the wind velocity. And so what I'm asking you to do in the last part is to input this information into that site. And in this case, I'm asking for the maximum wind velocity. So you should see the list there, and you can choose from that. How big was the final crater, right? Would you have survived? And then input some new information and look for the tsunami wave height for this one. Look for the Richter scale. So this is all you're doing for the last part. And then there's one more try. Input this information into that little program, hit calculate, and then you can answer the questions here. And that's really the lab. So it's not super complicated. The hardest part might be using this to identify the different craters. But remember, size is your friend here. So use that to your advantage. If it's very big, right, it's probably one of these multi-rings. These two you can tell. You should be able to see a central peak. That should be pretty easy to pick out. Or this kind of ring debris in the middle. So these two are probably the easiest. These two on the end members are kind of the size. Small, right, less than a kilometer. We're talking, simple. And these huge ones that are hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, right, those are the multi-rings. So that's kind of how the lab will work. It should be fairly straightforward. Hopefully you won't have too many questions. But of course, if you do, please remember to reach out to me and I will help you out with this lab.